It's still one of the most talked about conspiracy theories out there. Did President John F. Kennedy have an affair with Marilyn Monroe? It all dates back to May 19, 1962, at a fundraiser and early birthday celebration for President John F. Kennedy, where Marilyn Monroe stepped onto Madison Square Garden stage, shrugged off her glamorous fur coat to reveal a skin-tight rhinestone-encrusted gown, and stepped up to the microphone, where, in her famous signature yet childlike voice, sang her famous Happy Birthday song. If the public didn't already believe the Hollywood sex symbol and the commander-in-chief were already secret lovers, Marilyn Monroe's sexy performance would make them the subject of intense speculations for decades to come, which led to relentless tabloids filled with lies and doctored photos of the two of them together. But you do have to admit, there was something there to imagine. They were two of the most famous figures in the world at the time, and rumors of the president's extramarital affairs were widely spread. But when it came to the alleged Marilyn Monroe romance, how much of the truth was there behind all the gossip? Well, not much, according to multiple sources, including historian Donald Spoto, the author of the 1993 book Marilyn Monroe, the biography. And according to these accounts, there are only a few times throughout their lives where President Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe could have encountered one another. The first account was in April of 1957, where both Marilyn Monroe and Kennedy, who was Senator of Massachusetts at the time, reportedly attended a Paris ball at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. But according to this account, they didn't meet, for at the time, they were with their respective spouses. Kennedy was with Jacqueline Onassis at the time, while Marilyn Monroe was with playwright Arthur Miller. Fast forward 4 years later, in 1961, where the actress and the newly elected president of the United States were rumored to have both been at a dinner party hosted at the Santa Monica home of actor Peter Lawford, whose wife just so happened to be Patricia Kennedy, JFK's sister, who also happened to be a close friend of Marilyn Monroe. However, while it can be confirmed that President Kennedy did attend his luncheon on the day of question, it can't be confirmed that Marilyn Monroe was in attendance. But if anything, the most plausible night for an affair would have been March 24th, 1962, where multiple historians agree both Marilyn Monroe and President Kennedy are thought to have been at a party thrown by Bing Crosby at his Palm Springs, California home. In the Marilyn Monroe biography, Donald Spoto quotes Marilyn's close friend and masseuse, Ralph Roberts, claims that while he was on the phone with Marilyn that weekend, he heard what sounded like Kennedy's voice. Marilyn had called to ask for professional massage advice, and everybody knows back then, President Kennedy famously had a bad back. And apparently, he even took the phone to talk to Roberts himself. Actress Susan Strasberg, who is a close friend of Marilyn Monroe, corroborated this story in her unpublished memoir, saying, "It was okay to sleep with a charismatic president, and Marilyn loved the secrecy and the drama of it. But Kennedy wasn't the kind of man she wanted to spend her life with, and she made that very clear." So if they were indeed together at Bing Crosby's home on the day in question, it's also possible that Kennedy might have asked Marilyn to sing at his birthday that very night. At the time of the celebration, Marilyn was also filming Something to Give and had been struggling with sinuses and her dependency on barbiturates, both of which delayed the movie's schedule. She was well enough to fly to New York to fulfill her commitment to the president, but the studio used this pre-planned absence as an excuse to cancel the film, all while blaming and suing Marilyn Monroe for supposed breach of contract, where in reality, it wasn't Marilyn's fault, because she had requested time off in advance. Plus, the movie was already falling behind because the script was getting rewritten. After singing the sexy version of Happy Birthday, which would later transition into Thanks for the Memories,
late Marilyn Monroe.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you. Thanks, Mr. President, for all the things you've done, the battles that you've won, the way you deal with U.S. Steel and our problems by the ton. We thank you so much. Everybody, happy birthday!
President Kennedy then took to the stage to thank her, where he said, "I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet, wholesome way." The event was also followed by a photograph where Cecil Strogden snapped the only existing photo of the two figures, as you can see right here. And like how I said earlier, it was this supposed night where Marilyn Monroe and President Kennedy supposedly had an affair. But can you really call it an affair? If anything, it was more like a one-night stand. But let me know what you think. Did Marilyn Monroe and President Kennedy have an affair? Or is just all wild conspiracy theories just to keep things going?